Liar. Everywhere. On netrootsradio.com. David Waldman. Kagro. In the morning. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? It is Wednesday, January 7th, 2026. I'm still working on getting that correct. And, of course, working on getting over the fact that it was January 6th yesterday. And when Greg Dworkin joins us today, and I mean, come on, let's be honest, he's already joined us, even though we haven't played any fanfare. We'll get to that. But he hasn't had his opportunity to discuss the fact that we've just passed the 5th anniversary and the end of the statute of limitations for charging most people for their crimes, and of course, an administration not only intent on not prosecuting them for their crimes, but if they have been prosecuted for their crimes, found guilty by a jury and everything, they have been pardoned and released from prison. And several dozen of them have found themselves back in the before the judiciary system. Again, the criminal justice system, one with two separate but equally important parts. I think we may be down to one part now, but it too is separate and equally important to itself, I suppose. And lots to round up for today, and of course, lots of the continuing stories. We have 6 or 7 distractions from each other. All of them separate but equally important groups of distractions, of course. Venezuela, Jeffrey Epstein, Venezuela, Greenland, Venezuela, Jeffrey Epstein. And, oh, by the way, something like, 28 days from the next government shutdown. And with, I forgot this one until just about a second ago, and now I'll have to go back and look it up. But the Republicans in Congress down to 218 even, 218 on the dot. That's what constitutes a majority in the House of Representatives, with the death of the member representing the California 1st District, whose name I don't have offhand because I didn't know the guy, but it was like a 7-term congressman. Another member of Congress, I am also reliably informed, was in a terrible car accident and also likely won't be available for duty in the House of Representatives anytime soon. So this is one of those situations where if every Democrat shows up and there's normal absences among the Republicans, you may have difficulty mustering majority. They'll find somebody in the closet and drag them out, of course, I think, or just suspend all the voting if they can't muster a majority, but it makes for interesting times. All right, well, Greg Dworkin tells me that he's feeling a little under the weather, and I don't think that's too much of a HIPAA violation to say so. So we'll keep things light and simple with one of your favorites to lift your spirits, Greg, the Imperial fanfare. Greg Dworkin joins us for his annual pilgrimage to January 7th, I guess, which is, unless it falls on
which is the day after
Friday.
January 6th, depending on what day of the week, right?
Right.
So,
it's almost always after January 6th. The day of the week varies from time to time.
Right. The guy who died, whose name you're trying to remember, is Doug LaMalfa.
Yes, Jake LaMotta. I remember exactly what that was in my head. I'm like, that's not him.
He is a Republican from the 1st District in California, very rural, very, very Republican. So his replacement will be Republican. However, it's about to be redistricted into being a Democratic district. So
it has been in the past.
His replacement gets to hang on for a little bit, and then he gets replaced. Okay.
And I just, as a reminder, there's, like I said, there's exactly 218 of them still alive in the House of Representatives, one of whom won't be there anytime soon. Normal absences, you're usually missing 4, 5, 6 people anyway.
Well, but not also, only that, I mean, at least 2 of them.
Okay.
There you go. Sparts, Mace, are schizophrenic, so you don't really know which party they're in.
Not sure what's going to happen. Marjorie Trader Taylor, whoever's Green, just resigned the other day, so she's out.
She's gone. She's out.
Also, just keeping in mind, I know this is a very Republican district, and a lot of these places are, but we're just happen to be in the middle of a continuing run of spectacular Democratic overperformances in special elections. I don't anticipate any flips anytime soon, but it just keeps momentum going.
You're winning Democratic plus 15. In other words, Republican plus 15 plus 15 plus 16 seats are not safe.
Yeah.
But if you're in a Republican plus 27, you probably are. That's
Most
what,
likely.
California Doug LaMalfa district is for now.
Right. But maybe they're just mad. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe.
I mean, I don't anticipate anything like a close contest there, but it's another opportunity to talk about the issues and freak out Republicans by showing them how badly they'll underperform when they're in trouble.
So I don't have a whole lot to say about January 6th. It hasn't already been said, but I do find darkly amusing that our local papers always find a Connecticut angle to anything that happens.
Okay.
Like, for example, we invade Venezuela illegally.
Yeah.
They'll say up front, illegal, a fraught with problem invasion took place.
Yes.
But here are the military vehicles that were made in Connecticut. They always throw that in.
Impact on the nutmeg
it's
market.
important to recognize that because when you look at polling about how the military incursion is being received by the public, you always have to include like Sikorsky helicopters in Connecticut or Groton Naval Base. These things are local jobs and heavily supported by the locals.
Okay. Well,
Bath Iron Works in Maine, Norfolk in Virginia has a lot of military personnel involved in this, that, and everything else. So it's all important. Even though Northern Virginia may vote on traffic,
yes,
Norfolk
traffic
and
to get to the
Beach are going to have military stuff that's going to influence their vote. That's just the way it works.
If it's hard to get to the base because of bad traffic, it's hard to deploy.
Well,
So,
if they had
there
Northern
you go.
Virginia traffic down there, it'd be a traffic issue too.
Yes.
So the other local angle here is Representative Jim Himes ties January 6th siege to Venezuela raid as Trump's complete disregard for the law.
Okay.
Which is true. But
Yeah, that's
the important thing is
that's a
Himes said
theme.
it, so it's like front page news.
Well, that's what being platformed gets for you.
Yeah. Exactly
Excellent.
Right.
By the way, the other news, it was Representative Jim Baird of Indiana, who apparently was in this
Who's in that motor
terrible
vehicle accident.
car accident. And so I mean, he's 80 as it is, and now apparently badly injured. And so, this continuing troubles in terms of mustering a majority, but life is rough. It throws curveballs wherever you go. So,
yeah, a lot of talk about,
I don't know anything about Jim Baird. Maybe he's...
Well, I don't know. Didn't he play for the Jets?
Sure.
or pitch for the Phillies? I mean, guys named Baird always did.
Yeah,
so,
all right.
I'll
buy it.
It's hard to figure what's going on here, but I have to point out something which struck me, and that is here's a Reuters poll. A third of Americans support U.S. strike on Venezuela, Reuters Ipsos poll finds. Summary. Trump's approval rating rises to 42. 60% of Republicans support sending U.S. troops. But 1 in 3 Americans approves overall. That's not very good. And 72% worry the U.S. will become too involved in the South American country. The two-day poll showed 65% of Republicans backing military operation, 11% of Democrats, and only 23% of independents. And just for grins, I went to the Google and looked up some historical comparison numbers because I didn't think that was all that impressive. My recollection was usually, even in places that have military bases, the support for this sort of thing used to be much higher. This is Gallup, March 24th, 2003.
Okay.
Back in the day. 72% of Americans support war against Iraq. Bush approval up 13 points to 71%. Just in comparison.
Yes, it was higher. Well, yeah, and of course the run-up was much different. There was a lot more attention paid to justification, for instance.
And even that was slightly more muted, says Gallup, than the case just after the first Persian Gulf War in 1991. 80% of Americans supported the decision. So 1 in 3 is awful. It's terrible.
Yeah,
and it's
well, it makes no
again,
sense.
I said the other day, this is not Iraq 2.0. It's got shades of it. It's got the incompetence. It's got the greatest as liberators. It's blood for oil. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's similar. It's illegal. It's stupid.
Yeah,
but at the same time,
the
reaction of both the media and the public is not quite the same.
No. Well, they never gave it a chance to, and it's not clear that Trump cared or thinks it was an oversight or wishes he had more time to do that. I don't think he intended to consult with anybody. He's just doing what he's doing and figuring everyone will love it because that's what he thinks happens with everything.
Right. So here's, for example, you remember it was like they're going to greet us as liberators, shock and awe, all that crap they had, mission accomplished on the aircraft carrier with W and Chris Matthews, thrill going down my leg, as if he wasn't, otherwise making his leg warm for other reasons. This is the New York Times today. Europe and rest of world try to come to terms with Trump the imperialist.
Yes.
That's quite a headline from usually the peanut gallery clapping and cheering because America loves military operations.
Yes. Although apparently you have to tell them about them first. That's the limitation.
Well, once it happens, generally people will rally around it. I expect numbers in support of the Venezuelan incursion, kidnapping, whatever you want to call it, will go up because that's just the way things work, but they won't stay up. They'll come right back down when people figure out what the hell did we do, and by the way, I forgot about it.
I wonder. Yeah, I mean, one of the things that usually helps keep the numbers up or rising is that they say, well, remember, we have U.S. troops overseas. You got to support the troops. And people do say, well, I disagree with this action, but I support the troops. And now here there's no troops there. I don't know that they're going to be able to use that as a rallying point. So,
well, see, that's the thing. They're kind of in a double bind because there are no troops there, so you can't rally around that.
Hey, I don't support it then.
There, that's bad because people don't want that.
Yeah, right. Better off for the troops. The troops will probably say, I'd rather not be there. That's true. It is my job, but if I can, not go into combat, sure, I'll take that.
Well, again, if you want to win over young men,
oh yeah, right,
send them to Venezuela.
That's true. So if they tell them we're going to do this with drones and let you fly them like video games from home, that would be supported.
European leaders are said to be privately angry and even panicky about President Trump's new threats to seize Greenland from Denmark, a NATO ally. But they need the United States to ensure credible security for post-war Ukraine against any aggression by Russia, a vital strategic interest for Europe. So with that backdrop, European leaders met in Paris on Tuesday with senior American negotiators to discuss how to secure peace settlement in Ukraine. It was going to be done on day one, remember? And then we had a breakthrough.
Well, it's day one now.
And then that, and we're still right in the same place.
Yeah. It's day one of Jeffrey Epstein.
Russia keeps rejecting everything because they want to take the whole country. And Trump is so stupid, he thinks the American public won't realize that he's getting paid to do this by Russia. Yeah.
Weird visuals from this security conference as well as I don't know whether this was, I don't know how long ago this was set up, but they have, all of the leaders of the attending nations or the representatives up on stage, each with a podium. No, is it a podium or a lectern? Sorry. With their national flag behind them, the EU flag there. And at the U.S. lectern, Steve Witkoff standing there, which is ridiculous enough. But also Jared Kushner, for no apparent reason, and also without a lectern of his own, just sort of standing next to the other one. And it's just kind of odd, like Vladimir Zelensky, Emmanuel Macron, Keir Starmer, Jared Kushner, just sort of injecting himself. Right. He holds no government position, just happens to be
Kushner is not
related by marriage.
Necessarily a competent person, but he's absolutely a connected person.
Yes, that's true. And that becomes an important part of the explanation. Or was it on yesterday? Maybe we'll retouch on it today. Yesterday being Political Science Tuesday, the discussion of neo-royalism as an organizing principle for the United States government and internationally. And then, if you're part of the royal family, you go.
It's not new. You may recall Ivanka Trump, Jared Kushner's wife.
That's right, the other one.
Used to sit in for her father at UN conferences.
Yeah.
as the royal princess.
That's right. And
So
people were baffled by her presence, and you could see it in the faces of world leaders who were like, I'm a world leader. You're a what now?
Exactly.
I like
Same thing
normal
here.
people, but you're not.
Yeah.
So.
But now they fully understand, yes, but you have Trump's ear, so we have to be nice to you.
Right. And that's become part of the game.
So this is Vaughn Serling reporting via Twitter.
Hello.
Industry sources tell CNN that American oil executives are unlikely to dive headfirst into Venezuela for multiple reasons.
Oh.
The situation on the ground remains very uncertain. Venezuela oil industry is in shambles, and Caracas has a history of seizing U.S. assets.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that could be a problem. And Juliet Kayyem, the security expert, says, I'm curious who is whispering in Trump's ear about Venezuelan oil being easily accessible. It isn't.
Okay.
It's heavy crude, and it takes a tremendous amount of work to actually get stuff out of it.
Because it's heavy.
And coveted by the industry, it isn't, because of the $100 billion investment in 10-year window to get anything out of it.
That sounds like a lot.
Is there some industry friend, Rubio, Miller, beyond the legality, beyond the lack of planning? Isn't the narrative now that Trump got duped?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, if he thinks it's easy, then he was duped. But I mean, if you're stealing it, who cares how easy it is, I guess?
Yeah. Someone else commenting, this is a lot of oil reserve, but most of it is heavy oil. That is to say, low viscosity sulfurous tar, which is expensive to produce and which trades at huge discount to the light sweet crudes of Texas and the North Sea. Not all oil is equal, and the aging infrastructure requires huge amounts of investment. The industry knows this perfectly well, but Trump and his yes men don't do detail or science.
No, oil, worth money. I like it. That's it.
Right. So, a lot going on there. Lulu, New York Times, Lulu G. Navarro, who is reporting on the ground in Venezuela.
Hello.
Or at least speaking to people in Venezuela. She may not be there. Speaking to people I know inside Venezuela, sounds like she's not there, she's just talking to people, they tell me armed gangs, basically paramilitary gangs allied to the government, are roaming the streets, arrested journalists are taking place, and the new old government is undergoing a wave of repression. Is this what the U.S. means by being in control?
Yes. Is that confusing to people?
Yeah, it is. And then Trump says, no, they're accommodating us. They're going to start handing over some oil to the U.S.
Oh, yeah. He's got a number. It used to be 30 to 50
the interesting piece
feral
about
hogs,
it is that when the Times reported this, they say Trump claimed. It's
That's
important
nice.
to do that because he lies through his teeth all the time about everything.
Yes.
And just because he says something doesn't make it true. And it's also true that he's going to change his mind the next day.
Yeah, he's a confusing guy because he's all over the map. But yeah, we're at the same time, we're very often admonished by two different schools of thought. One, which is just because Trump said it doesn't mean it's true. Stop reporting it as though it's true. And then we're also admonished by others who've monitored his statements when he says he's going to do some outlandish thing and everybody laughs it off, and then he goes and does that thing. He told you he was going to do it. Why didn't you believe him? Well, because he also told me he was going to do this other thing, and he didn't do that.
Yeah, he did the opposite as well.
Yeah.
He said 9 things. One of them turned out to be true. Why didn't you pay attention?
Right.
How are you supposed to know which one of the 9 things he says is true? 'Cause the other things are clear lies.
You really don't. Although, again, I'll offer up the neo-royalist framework. I'm very high on that today. I'm going to read you a little bit of that article probably in the second hour because we're covering news now. But it does seem to make some sense. And whenever you come up with a theory that starts to explain things, oh, I understand why he did that. And then also that other opposite, okay, it helps.
Well, here's another theory. This is the New York Times.
Oh.
Stephen Miller offers a strong man's view of the world. President Trump's trusted advisor is casting his hard-right gaze abroad, saying the world must be governed by force. Mm-hmm. Quote, we live in a world in which you can talk all you want about international niceties and everything else, like law.
Right.
But we live in a world, in the real world, Jake Tapper, that is governed by strength, that is governed by force, that is governed by power, Miller told Jake Tapper of CNN on Monday during a combative appearance in which he was pressed on Trump's long-held desire to control Greenland. So it was a pretty abysmal performance, but, that's basically straightforward. The deal is we're doing this because we can, and who are you, and why do you think you're going to stop us? I mentioned that in the context of Friday where I won't be on the air because that's the day that Supreme Court's going to hand down a ruling and it may well be on tariffs, and Trump may lose.
Okay. Well, they'll have to bring out the strong man to give a strong man's view. It was interesting to hear that described that way.
Okay, well, we can't do it. Like, how many divisions does the Supreme Court have?
Yeah. Maybe, I don't know. Well, we'll ask a strong man.
Adolf Hitler famously about the Pope.
It's getting annoying though too, watching Stephen Miller give the strong man view, and then when you see him in there, his skull caving in behind his hollow eyes, it doesn't look like much of a strong man. But of course, that's one of the more annoying types of strong man. The guys behind me are the strong men, but I'm going to taunt you as though I'm the guy. I just remember this is the guy who melted down when he thought somebody might have spit in his sushi and he threw it all away and ran down the alleyway. This is the guy who
spray painted his bald head.
Right. Not a strong man. And of course, this is not his saber to rattle, and that's what makes him so annoying. Well,
on the other hand, if you remember the old children's cartoon, Skeletor was pretty jacked.
Oh, yeah, right.
Probably taking stuff.
Yeah, it was the man part that was difficult for him. He was strong, but he was a skeleton on his head. We don't know if that's a man or not.
Yeah.
Strong corpse.
What
was he? Was he undead? Why did he have a skeleton head? No explanation.
Nobody was asking.
Okay. Well, skeletons are very scary, so.
Right. So let's go, for the next few minutes, I want to go back to this Jim Himes article, which appears in the New Haven Register, of all places. It's a Gannett chain, so it's all over. I saw it in the Danbury paper.
Okay.
As the ranking Democrat on the House Intelligence Committee, making him one of the gang of 8 members who were supposed to be briefed on secret U.S. missions, but wasn't. That's what it says. Himes holds an up-close view of foreign conflicts, just as he held an uncomfortably close view of the attack of the Capitol 5 years ago. What they share in common is a complete disregard for the law. It's worth remembering how important the rule of law is to civilization. Speaking of the Venezuela smash-and-grab operation, there's no argument, he said. It's illegal under international law, but this administration doesn't really care about international law, which is what Stephen Miller just said. And so that's why I think it's important Himes is pointing it out.
Yes.
Numerous legal experts have been cited in media reports agreeing the raid violated international law. This is what locals are reading. Yeah. Despite Trump calling it a law enforcement action, an absurd claim considering he also said the U.S. will run Venezuela. This is the columnist Dan Haar writing. Mm-hmm. Not only did the administration fail to consult with the appropriate leaders of Congress, it lied about the operation a few weeks ago when preparations were underway, Himes told me. The Secretary of State, quote, the Secretary of State twice, while I was in a room in these very small meetings, assured the congressional leadership nothing like what we saw 48 hours ago was being planned or contemplated. Well, so the Secretary of State was not being honest. That would be Marco Rubio, who was lying through his teeth.
It could be. Or I do want to throw out the possibility that they knew they were going to do it, but they were not planning for it.
Or how about it didn't really count because Marco Rubio wasn't, properly put into office. He'll have to step aside like Lindsey Elliott.
That's a good point.
Who knows? These guys are just such bozos.
She's back in the news with that. There's a judge yelling at her about that right now. So that's good news.
Himes isn't suggesting Trump follow the law just because the rules exist. He's a pragmatist, and these days, following the covert Caracas coup, he's focused on the risks of taking out a foreign dictator by force. America needs to grapple with this. If the president has carte blanche to start removing bad guys without consultation with Congress, what happens when the next president decides to take out North Korea or Moscow or Beijing? I mean, the world is filled with bad guys, and I don't think American people should lightly accept that the president can unilaterally commit and risk the lives of thousands of Americans because he or she decides to do so, go after a bad guy. Remember, the lives of thousands of Americans? Those are young male voters in 2026.
That's right.
I just need to point that out.
That's right. And, of course, since they think voting by mail is fraud, they'll be in the military and they won't vote, and they'll be upset.
Right. So this columnist, Dan Haar, a local guy,
Everybody's
points
Jim
out
there.
Himes has always been speaking out against the lawlessness. This isn't anything new. I really don't blame at all Venezuelans or anybody celebrating the demise of Maduro. Anytime a really horrible dictator is removed, it's a good thing. We're in this euphoric period where the people are stunned by the capability of our military, but they need to think about the precedent that's being established. All of us who are over the age of 30 remember Afghanistan, Libya, and Iraq as not particularly good outcomes.
Right. And MAGA campaigned against not doing those anymore, except when they do them.
Right. Himes also pointed out those 3 foreign forays had consent from Congress.
Right.
And the
coalitions
that followed all of those operations were not very good at nation building and regime change. We're damn good at getting rid of the head of the snake. We're damn good at that. So again, it was a tactical success and a shades of Iraq 2.0 strategery.
Yeah, I don't know how good we are. I mean, it's nice to praise the military operators, but how long did it take to find Saddam Hussein in his spider hole? Like, we found him. That's great, but
Well, how long did it take to find Bin Laden? Well, I don't know. We turned our back on Tora Bora and they went and invaded another country. You know? So that's kind of the point.
Yeah.
But
eventually we get around to it.
It is what it is.
Okay. It's hard.
Anyway, so I'm just trying to point out the reaction to Venezuela. You would normally expect the propaganda stations like CBS, which I don't watch, to just show Venezuela expats in Florida cheering and then build their entire narrative around that. That's not what's happening. If they're doing that at all, it's certainly not what's happening in the rest of media.
Okay. There's a whole weird media story we should, eventually we'll probably get around to covering it, but the devolution over at CBS News is a lot more rapid than I think anybody anticipated. I guess they have a new anchor for the CBS Evening News.
Yeah,
and I think
really screwed up when he was on the air.
I haven't seen that, but I heard people saying that I guess they released
we're going to do that. So, no, aren't we going to do this story? Hang on.
I'm hearing in my ear. Yeah, so anyway, I believe they released an edited version of his first newscast on, I don't know, wherever they put this on YouTube or whatever, but he ended the broadcast the day before or the day after with, Marco Rubio, we salute you, which seems like maybe not a news kind of thing to say.
Hi everybody, this is Scott Anderson, your summary guy. Were you looking forward to an egalitarian democracy free of bigotry, misogyny, racism, and greed, where people of different appearances, belief, and heritage had a right to live without fear, and everyone could expect a basic level of health, stability, and safety throughout their life? Well, too bad. The plain fact is that we're heading in the wrong direction. And where we once had a voice in such things, increasingly we don't. Not exactly the kind of news I wanted to share, but there it is. However, if you're looking to join people who understand today's issues and can intelligently address the reality of today from your point of view, you can join us at Kagro in the morning. As you know, there aren't many of us out there, at least compared to them. We need to stick together, and by that I mean send us money. That is contributions to patreon.com, secure, reoccurring contributions. Those contributions keep this show on the air and us together. We've been through a lot together. The temporary loss of the presidency, we hope. The temporary loss of the House, the Senate, the Supreme Court, we hope. Face it, we are pretty much all that we have left. Remember, we couldn't do it without you, and you shouldn't do it without us. We're in this together, so thanks.
All right, welcome back, everyone, to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. We continue on with our coverage of all the distractions, which only distract from one another, so it all works out in the end. It's a wash. I was telling Greg just over the break, I wanted to kind of work this in. I didn't mention, I don't think, the story that broke, I guess, Monday or over the weekend, that somebody, there's always one, made a fortune, allegedly, on the prediction markets, the betting markets, by, probably exploiting classified material that they shouldn't have access to. And I don't know where Barron Trump was at the time, but, whatever. I'm not saying it was him. He probably would have bet a lot more money than this person. But they put in a couple grand on out of the blue bets that Nicolas Maduro wouldn't last past January 31st, that there would be an invasion of Venezuela before January 31st, that there would be regime change there before January 31st, a couple of different bets, and miraculously turned it into almost $500,000 in winnings. The news today is that Polymarket, where those bets were placed, is refusing to pay off those bets. I'm guessing from the headline that they're saying two people getting snatched out of there by troops that went in, went out, and haven't gone back isn't an invasion, so we don't have to pay you, which is pretty funny,
Well,
especially if it is Barron Trump.
I mean, they probably have to pay the one about change of regime.
I don't know. That's another disputable. The guy's vice president is running. Well, he's not running it. That's true, but it's still.
And says Trump can't have anything he wants.
Yeah.
So who knows? That's the superficial comment that allows you not to pay.
Yeah.
Even though under the table he may be getting everything he wants.
Plus, I can make up any story I want because this thing is paywalled, and not only will I not get it, but none of you will get it. Well, someone might subscribe. It's Financial Times. Yeah. So if you're reading the pink paper,
I can look that up.
Okay. Well, I'll send you, maybe just for your own amusement, you can read about how people aren't getting paid. You mentioned though that there's another betting market on the market. I guess Kalshi, the one that sounds like the breakfast cereal, and they're the ones that are doing strategic partnerships with news organizations, which I think is kind of probably unethical at bottom. But what can you do? But you mentioned you had a comparison to make, the differentiating between the two. Which
Polymarket I always think of as Real Clear Politics when it comes to polling aggregates, which is to say I don't believe a word of it.
Okay.
They put their finger on the scale. Whereas Kalshi seems to be a little bit more reputable. Whatever that means in a betting market. This is not Bitcoin. But, it's still a little sketchy. So,
sounds
take it with a grain of salt, buyer beware, caveat emptor, all that sort of stuff.
I mean, I think the betting and prediction market, just being a thing, is probably just bad. I just don't like the idea. People manipulate it. There have been a couple of reports of, I guess, and I'm not making any of this money. If they were giving it to me, I would love it.
But I'm even older, so I don't like it anymore.
I guess so. Yeah, I don't really think it's something you should be making a product out of, but apparently that's outmoded thinking. But when there's partnerships involved and when there's lots of money involved and manipulation possible, right? Like, for instance, if you were able to place those bets and you were a major MAGA influencer like, I don't know, whoever, Laura Loomer, and then you started agitating online for an invasion of Venezuela, and the idiot president read it and did it, and you got paid because you predicted it, that doesn't seem like much of a prediction market to me. That sounds like just pump and dump, like you should be arrested for securities fraud, but that's unregulated, so we wouldn't be arresting you for it. Or whatever.
Well, the real problem is
trading
that it
on inside
have a jingle
information
to go with it. Kalshi and Polymarket don't have jingles like Outer Worlds 2, my favorite
that's
video
true.
games.
Here's a jingle for them.
That's bullshit.
Da-da-da-da-da-da. I'll add some music at the end.
Yeah, I got your jingle right here.
That's it.
So let's talk a little bit about. My voice is not going to last till 10, but maybe it'll last till 9:45.
All right.
Trump's war on children.
Oh.
Democrats abroad points out cuts to SNAP, cuts to Head Start, cuts to vaccine mandates. That's what we're going to talk about. Cuts to child support, cuts to child abuse investigation, cuts to Medicaid, Medicare, cutting Department of Ed, separating children from migrant parents, and so much more. All of that's going on. So here's the headline. RFK Jr. overhauls, and it's interesting. The original one had CDC, but they changed it to the proper RFK Jr. overhauls childhood vaccine schedule to resemble Denmark. The new U.S. guidelines recommend all children get vaccines for 11 diseases compared with 18. And so some of the things that have been dropped are important.
Oh? Are they things we're suffering from right now?
If you're a fan of meningitis, you'll probably like this. But in Denmark, vaccines for flu, COVID, RSV, chickenpox, hepatitis A, rotavirus, and meningitis aren't included in the schedule.
And
CDC said it will continue to recommend children get vaccines for measles, mumps, rubella, polio, pertussis, tetanus, diphtheria, Haemophilus influenza type B, which is important. They're all important, but that one's especially important. It's important because it causes epiglottitis in children, and it causes meningitis in children. And it's important because I'm old enough to have treated these things and tried to deal with these things when I was a young physician. And by the time I got to be an old physician, they were gone because these vaccines had made them go away. Pneumococcal disease, which also causes meningitis, HPV, and chickenpox. Chickenpox also can cause viral meningitis. Other vaccines will be recommended for high-risk groups. High-risk groups are shots for RSV, hepatitis A, hepatitis B, dengue, and 2 types of bacterial meningitis.
Two types, not just one.
All sorts of meningococcal meningitis strains. Some of them are recommended for high schoolers. Others are recommended for college-bound kids. There's a very useful page here, meningococcal meningitis vaccination requirements and recommendation tracker. So basically, you can look at your state and/or you could look at your college and see whether or not it's recommended. For example, I don't know. Let's go to the bottom of the list here and pick Virginia.
All right.
And ask the question. The main meningitis, meningococcal meningitis A, C, W, and Y strain vaccine. Secondary schools in these states require 1 dose before age 16 and another at age 16 or older. That's not uniform across the country, but Virginia requires it.
All right. Then
so
we probably have
your
it.
high schooler has to get that because that's one of the more common meningitis strains you really want to prevent.
Well, someone else's high schooler has to get it.
Colleges and universities also require it.
Oh.
And then for
in that
the
case.
college strain, the meningitis B in Virginia, George Mason, James Madison, Mary Baldwin.
3 great people,
Virginia
by the way.
colleges are named after people, I see. University
Yes.
of Richmond, University of Virginia,
Mr.
Virginia
Richmond.
Commonwealth University, VCU, Virginia State, Washington,
so
and
much for
Lee. They all require it.
Washington, Lee, those are people.
Yeah.
William, Mary, probably also require it. I don't know. They're not on the list. What's going on there?
It's recommended for those.
Okay.
Fewer require it, absolutely require it, but there are some.
All right.
And then it also mentions, oh, by the way, here are the universities, like Shenandoah requires it. The others, it's just recommended.
I see.
But here are the colleges in your state which have had recent past meningococcal outbreaks.
Oh, well,
University of Virginia is listed, for example.
All right.
So it's real. It happens. You can look state by state and see the differing requirements. These vaccine requirements are complicated. They've been built up over decades. And to just eliminate them is not only stupid, it's dangerous. This stuff kills people. So, that's why RFK, as bad as everybody else is, Hegseth and Kash Patel and the Department of Justice in general. I mean, there's
Kash Patel.
Tulsi Gabbard. There's some really, really, really bad cabinet members.
Yeah.
Pam Bondi, but RFK Jr. is top of my list just because he does this stuff.
He does, and I remind
Bill
people
Cassidy
also,
says this is wrong. You shouldn't do that, and everybody says, Cassidy, you asshole, you're the vote that made him be able to do this. Shut the hell up.
Yeah, right. Everyone reminds him of that all the time. He doesn't seem to. I don't know. I hope it bothers him in private.
I don't know what bothers people and what doesn't anymore.
I
have no idea. Like normal people would be like, I'm resigning.
Yes, but we don't have
it's
that
so
anymore.
Embarrassing. I can't stand to show my face. And he, I don't know what's with him.
I don't know either. I hold out the possibility that RFK Jr. may have unintended consequences of another kind down the road. As I pointed out, with just 200, no margin to work with, 218 Republicans in the House, 1 injured at the moment, a couple dozen of them representing areas with enormous outbreaks of preventable disease, because they say they hate vaccines. Maybe they haven't been vaccinated. Large unvaccinated populations in their area where they return to each weekend. Somebody's going to show up or miss a couple of votes with one of these diseases that they should have gotten vaccinated against. And maybe it'll cost them.
Well, I'm going to send 2 things to you.
All right.
That you have commented on. This is right at the bottom of the list.
I will look at them.
It's the Marco Rubio, We Salute You.
Okay. Oh, you got that?
And then the other one is Polymarket betting on changing regimes. And I'm
Here?
sending you a free link.
Okay. How is it a Polymarket?
Polymarket bets on Maduro are a warning.
okay.
Get ready for the golden age of insider trading.
Yes. Okay. Well,
So
that's
you might-
at least
you might
confirming my priors. I'll take a look at that one. Yeah. And can you bet on whether or not Republican members of Congress are going to get sick and miss votes and they're going to end up replacing the speaker or no?
Right. So this video about
All right. Let's look
the
at that.
CBS News
Did I open it?
broadcast is only a minute.
All right. I only have a minute. Let's back it up and turn on the volume and all right. This is Marco, the new anchor at, what's the guy's name at CBS News?
Tony Dokupil.
Tony Baloney. All right. Let's see.
Tonight and only in America, the many lives and many jobs of Marco Rubio, the son of Cuban immigrants and a former Florida senator. He's now the face of U.S. foreign policy and President Trump's point man on Venezuela, all in addition to his roles as Secretary of State, interim national security advisor, and acting national archivist and USAID chief. Whatever you think of his politics, you got to admit it's an impressive resume. And now AI memes have added to that portfolio, casting Secretary Rubio as the new governor of Minnesota, the new Shah of Iran, the prime minister of Greenland, the new manager of Manchester United, the head of Hilton Hotels, and highest of high honors of all, the new Michelin man. Now back in real life,
I got to tell you, the visuals for this are not that. Don't mesh with high honors. I'll say that. Okay, there's a bit more to it, but it doesn't want to play.
Of course, these memes may not add up to much, but for Rubio's hometown fans, which are many around here in Miami, it is a sign of how Florida, once an American punchline, has become a leader on the world stage. Marco Rubio, we salute you. You're the ultimate Florida man.
Okay.
And that's another day in America and in Miami. For CBS News, I'm Tony DeCopel. We'll see you tomorrow, live from Dallas.
Well, that's how
Good
he
night for
says
now.
Okay, I mean, we'll accept that. DeCopel, like Fred. Yeah, all right. Well, that's bizarre. What are they doing? Did they move their operations to Miami, or is it just on location?
This is the network of Walter Cronkite, and it's horrible.
It's certainly. I mean, we're in the middle of an invasion. Like maybe that was fine for CBS this morning, or the news thing in the morning where they teach you a recipe and do light news.
As well as the weather.
Yeah, I mean.
And now for weather in Venezuela, which we now own.
Yeah, I guess so. Did they move operations to Miami, or is this a
No, they're going around the country with the opening
thing,
tour to introduce Tony Baloney to the United States. So that's part of it.
It's
I don't have the video in front of me where he made all the mistakes. But I just wanted to point out CBS is, in fact, a propaganda outlet now, and it's bullshit.
Yes, people are really upset about it. And I noticed somebody made a good comment. Like, I was wondering whether, old folks who are stuck in their ways, who only, perhaps habitually tune to CBS News for their news because it was old school and relatively reliable in the home of Cronkite, etc., have wondered over the past couple of days, hey, has something happened? Everything seems weird, or are they just going with the flow, or I don't know what, but a lot of complaints about the heel turn of CBS, which I guess we knew was coming. Everybody just thought that, for whatever reason, that Barry Weiss was going to play it cool and lay low a little bit and then spring it on people, but apparently that's not what the investors were looking for.
I'm going to read for you something I haven't read yet. It just popped up in my feed, and I just thought it was interesting. So
all right, that's the way the show goes.
At the very, very bottom here.
Do a new thing.
I have two pieces. One is Polymarket bets on Maduro. The other is from Puck News, the one I want to do now. It's called Manospheres of Influence.
All
the
right.
disaffected young men who helped elect Trump are fed up with high prices, worried about AI, and frustrated by the president's neocon turn. Did I tell you? I told you.
Yes.
And according to exclusive new polling data, they're souring on Trump just as they turned on Joe Biden.
Okay.
So I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah. Those young men, they just don't know what they want.
Right.
I don't know.
But
interesting, worth noting, certainly. And I know some young men. I'll ask them what they think.
Yeah. So, that being the case, I just think that's something to keep an eye on. What do they actually say?
What do they actually say?
After the Trump administration stormed into Venezuela to arrest Nicolas Maduro, I waited for my colleague Julia Ioffe to weigh in with her typically insightful and wry analysis. She delivered, outlining the myriad ways in which Trump has dialed back his supposedly isolationist views in favor of a newfound zest for foreign intervention, strike against Iran nuclear sites, strikes against Houthi rebels in Yemen, Islamic State positions in Syria and Nigeria, saber-rattling against Colombia, Mexico, and Denmark. Last year, Trump launched more missile strikes, 626, than Joe Biden did as an entire first term. The administration made its pivot abundantly clear on X this week. This is our hemisphere in capital letters.
Yeah. Pretty crazy.
Now, the MAGA faithful have mostly gone along for the ride. What used to bill itself as a non-interventionalist movement is deftly reformatted, but while the Trumpiest Republicans might love it, MAGA alone didn't get Trump elected, as 2024 math worked because independents and casual voters broke for him. How many times have I said that? It's not MAGA.
Many.
That doesn't matter. It's everybody else.
Yeah,
Despite Trump's victory lap this
gross.
week, his military adventurism continues to put him crossways with one of the most important voting blocs that sent him back to the White House, young men. In many ways, the drift of young men away from Trump this year tells the story of why his presidency has hit the skids. Simply put, Trump continues to do things he wasn't elected to do, and young male voters have noticed.
Well,
this project is helmed by longtime
enough.
youth polling expert John Della Volpe, who surveyed 4,211 young people between the ages of 16 and 29. It found that young men simply don't trust the president. A rupture. And a rapture.
Began as a
rapture, ended as a rupture with Trump's Liberation Day tariff announcement last spring. Last year, young men were typecast as a bunch of reactionary white bros who voted for Trump because of podcasts, misogyny, or whatever.
They did do that.
Those are all real angles,
it was cast
but
that
they
way.
also conveniently whitewashed the whole story. Young men of all races and classes shifted to Trump, hoping that would bring down costs and help them access an economy that felt out of reach. Della Volpe told me prices haven't gone down. President seems more focused on foreign policy. Favorability rating among young men was 56% last spring. Now it's 46 and a lowly 36 among all young people. The big picture is Trump was getting the benefit of the doubt. Now they're reflecting on those policies several months later and seeing no improvement, and they're saying the situation is no better and in some cases worse.
Well, they did get typecast that way.
Yeah. They also found that avoiding unnecessary wars and conflicts is important. 78% said it matters. 68% said they'd be more likely to support a candidate who avoids them. Barack Obama knew that. Young men also said that Democrats would avoid foreign wars compared to Republicans by 5 points. Of course, the Trump administration would say their Venezuela action was necessary, but when your administration forcibly extracts a foreign leader from a heavily fortified compound, killing dozens of people in the process, that might be a semantic difference to say you're not at war.
Yes. And let's not forget the 100 they killed before they ever went.
Yeah, many of them Cubans. Only 27% of young men, 27%, agree that Trump is delivering for people like you. So that's a big deal. Yeah.
And maybe it was overplayed a little bit. I mean, it was alarming to see the trend among younger men, particularly, anyone adhering to Trump is always kind of alarming. But we do tend to sort of jump on these things and pretend that they're mega trends. When you were reading about how they were cast as being reactionary, pro-Trump MAGA voters, I actually brought to mind the national picture that many people still have in their heads of Loudoun County because of the attention that was given to protests at the school boards, etc.
All I know about Loudoun County is that everybody's on a school board. It's like the New Hampshire legislature. I mean, it's the only thing that matters. Everybody's on a school board.
And it was played though
Loudoun County
nationally as, and it was also very often thrown in there. It's one of the fun facts that they like to throw in there. Is that I don't know, for a while it was like one of the fastest growing counties, and it was also one of the highest income per capita counties, which this is no Beverly Hills here, but I guess there were some people really skewing the scale, because there's a lot of data centers here and a lot of tech business here that people forget about and think it's all in San Francisco or whatever. But at any rate, people would then quickly put together in their head lots of rich people, and suddenly reactionary MAGA sympathies flaring up. The whole county is becoming MAGA central. And the Republicans haven't won anything here in a very long time, and it's a very blue trending area. There's just a lot of loud protest going on in front of cameras, and then, by the way, there's some rich people here. And that was all that it took to create this weird idea that all of Loudoun County was reactionary. Not at all the case. Right. I mean, different story here, but reminded me of that. I just wanted to say that again about Loudoun County.
All right. Well, there you go. And we like to talk about Virginia. We love people in
Virginia.
Virginia.
I mean,
so this is a quick political report. Amy Walter writing.
Hello,
smart
Amy.
Cookie.
Sure.
The more it looks as if Trump is more interested in spreading the Don Roe doctrine than in tackling the economy, the harder it will be for GOP members in 2026 to battle Democrats' affordability attacks.
Yeah, 2026 is now.
The playing field is already set.
Yes.
Republicans will lose.
Good.
It's just so clear.
They
the
may
risk
lose before
for ours in 2026 isn't Venezuela, a GOP strategist told me. It's the lack of tangible economic wins people can feel week to week. And that's what that John Della Volpe poll is saying about young men. They're anxious about their prospects to buy a house and do well in this economy.
Kids.
They don't like anybody. They don't like Bernie. They don't like AOC. They don't like Republicans because they feel that nobody is delivering for them. In their lifetime, that's probably true. Remember, this is like 16 to 26-year-olds or something like that.
Yeah.
If you're 17 years old, no politician has delivered for you.
That's well, yeah. There's nothing to deliver to you yet either. By the way,
you've always lived in a bad situation.
Blame your parents.
Well, what about Bill Clinton and the Democrats making things work and actually closing the deficit and all this? That's ancient history.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the only Democratic administration that they would remember would be Biden.
Not even that one.
Well, Biden, and that was, I remember there was a huge COVID thing. And
I don't remember COVID. I just remember things being bad.
Yeah, I don't know. Although they probably enjoyed it quite a bit, being home from school for a year.
I don't have it in front of me, but Oliver Willis on Blue Sky wrote a whole thread about something that I've nagged you about for a long time. I've been in messaging for a long, long time, and Democrats just never get it. You have to make your opponent the bad guy.
Yes.
They just never do it.
That is necessary. Yeah, they're not comfortable with that. And it has to do with something, I think, to do with what we were discussing yesterday, which is I had to revive yesterday the reality-based community comment. And the original quote that everybody thinks at least is from Karl Rove. And, that's just one of the sort of the differences between the parties at this point, that Democrats think of themselves as the party of efficient governance of the bureaucracy, and that we're going to have reality-based, scientific-based, data-driven solutions to the problems that the most number of people tell us are most important to them, i.e. kitchen table issues, versus, whatever the hell we say is an issue over on the Republican side, whether it's really happening or not. And it's kind of a huge problem. And it doesn't require necessarily that Democrats just start making up issues, but it does require, saying that
issues you have.
What most people are interested in is not
Epstein.
statistics.
Don't shy away from, calling Trump a January 6th insurrectionist.
Right.
Don't shy away from that.
You certainly don't need to come on and frame it by saying, well, 56% of respondents said that he was a insurrectionist. You can just do it.
Say he was. Yeah.
You'll be right.
So here's more from that Della Volpe.
Oh, yes. Okay. Please.
Among young men, Barack Obama registered the highest favorability rating of any public figure at 56%, trailed closely by Mr. Beast at 55%, and Joe Rogan at 53%.
Good, Rogan's losing to Mr. Beast, but...
The only Republican who comes close to Trump's favorability rating with young men at 46% is RFK Jr. at 44%. Otherwise, young men give MAGA Republicans 32%.
I guess,
Vance
although
has
isn't
at
Rogan
33,
really one?
Andrew Tate is at 35. Kristi Noem has 17. Right?
Well, she's weird and old. Bleh.
Charlie Kirk remains popular. His widow is underwater. By a single point, young men actually think Democrats are better on immigration policy than Republicans. But again, they don't hold Democrats in very high esteem. Kamala Harris, -11. AOC, -2. Gavin Newsom, 26% favorability. These are, again, among young men. Bernie Sanders, 39 to 40%, suggesting his appeal to millennials hasn't translated to the youngest generation. And again, that's because nobody's delivering for them. And why does it matter what a 17-year-old thinks? They'll be voting.
Yes, eventually.
This next election.
They can register if they'll be 18.
Yeah.
I'm just making that
and
clear.
And the 16-year-old's going to vote for president, so pay attention,
kids.
Because this is the group that you want to convince now.
Yeah. Well, I guess you should be doing it in the game chat, which is what Steve Bannon kind of thought. And that's the approach he took to these things, is doing your politicking on Discord servers was, it's a lot more effective probably if you can chat with them over a game online than it is, well, certainly putting it on a television ad, which they never see.
Right.
All right. Well,
but that would be a funny poll. Right? Who are you more aware of at your age? This is only for the under 29s. Yeah. Who are you more aware of, James Carville or Mr. Beast?
It's true.
It's Mr. Beast by 50 to 1.
Of course. Absolutely. Which is outrageous and concerning. And it's just an interesting divide culturally. I became aware that there was a Mr. Beast when I think in a convenience store I saw somewhere one of those end cap displays of Mr. Beast chocolates and snacks, and I was like, well, who's Mr. Beast?
Mr. Beast. Mr. Beast, we salute you.
I guess so, right? They should. That's the next closing of the next episode. I found out who Mr. Beast was, and then I was still like, but I don't. So why does he have chocolates and snacks? I don't know. Why does Trump have steaks? Oh, you're right. That's the answer. That was the actual answer, because there's money in it and people will buy it.
There's money to be made. Yeah. Anyway, we're done with the show for today for me, and I will talk to you tomorrow, I think.
Excellent. Feel better.
And we'll talk about Polymarket bets on Maduro.
All right. Welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. And I am looking for, I got to find somewhere the listing for the Financial Times story. I think I have a MSN pirated version, I think. I don't know why they don't call this pirating. But very frequently when there are things that run in publications that have paywalls, I've noticed this, that from time to time Scott will send me things that are MSN tagged articles, MSN URL, and I just found one myself, and it turns out that it's just the same story, although I can't quite tell. It doesn't attribute it to Financial Times. It attributes it to Benzinga. Like, what is Benzinga? Not Bazinga, the exclamation from Big Bang Theory's Sheldon, but Benzinga. And I wonder if it's meant to evoke that or not. But anyway, Greg tells me that if I send him the Financial Times link, he'll be able to look the thing up. Now, where did I put that thing? Oh, while I'm grabbing it too, I can mention that I noticed another story that says that the Kansas's state legislature has decided not to pursue the Republican redistricting that was threatened. And so one of a couple of states where they've balked at what is essentially Trump's demand that they redistrict to maximize the number of what they think will be, thank you very much, Greg, the gift article has just come through. All right. Well, I just found the link finally to send to you, but never mind. I won't go that direction. Instead, I'll open it up here. But anyway, I was going to say that how come that went away? All right. There we go. The Kansas state legislature, I am told, is balking along with a couple others. And so, in addition to having the slimmest of margins, facing a huge uphill battle in terms of the party's acceptance and popularity, losing in a number of special elections, being vastly outperformed by Democratic voters who are interested in replacing Republicans wherever they can, even in very heavily Republican districts. In the face of all of that, they're also not going to get those redistricting efforts, although it may turn out, Trump will blast them for it, but it may turn out that, in their view, these things were dummy manders, that they were being asked to divide plus 15 Republican districts into 3 plus 5s, for instance, and that plus 5 wasn't going to cut it anymore in the face of a blue wave, and they understood that, and in an act of self-preservation refused to redraw their maps. I don't know if that's exactly what's going on. Matthew Kelly at the Kansas City Star may have a better view of it. Kansas won't redraw its congressional map in 2026. Top GOP, I like the way that rhymes. Top GOP lawmaker says they don't think it rhymes. It only rhymes on this show. No one says GOP anymore. No one, you notice that? No one ever says GOP anymore. It appears Kansas will not join the parade of states engaging in mid-decade redistricting ahead of the 2026 midterm elections, meaning Johnson County, it's always a local angle, Johnson County will remain in one congressional district. That's the takeaway if you're a reader of the Kansas City Star, I guess. The rest of us say the story lies elsewhere. Kansas House Speaker Dan Hawkins, a Wichita Republican, told reporters Monday that he doesn't have the votes. We don't have the votes necessary to pass a new map over the all but certain veto of Democratic Governor Laura Kelly. So that's the more likely, well, a very likely explanation for it that lies outside of the, it would be a dummy mander and or we're not listening to Trump or whatever it is. A gerrymandering push would have aimed to draw U.S. Representative Sharice Davids, the lone Democrat and person of color in Kansas's congressional delegation, out of office by splintering Johnson County into multiple districts. All right. So, yeah, they're less, well, I don't know. It may also require a dummy mander to get that done. We'll see whether they discuss that or not. But that was the aim, to redistrict Sharice Davids out of the game. But they say no. To say that redistricting wasn't high on my priority list would be wrong, because I truly believe that it was the right thing to do. How do you like this? This is a twist I wasn't expecting, said Hawkins, who is running for state insurance commissioner, which also tells you a little something. This, I don't know whether he's term limited in being House Speaker, but for whatever reason, this powerful Republican, currently Speaker of the state of the House in the state legislature, says, I got a new idea. I'm going to be insurance commissioner. So either that's an extraordinarily powerful role in Kansas, maybe it is, or he's in the insurance business, which may also be the case, or he's just really, really, really super interested in insurance, or he's term limited and is like, I don't want to hang around here as a rank and file member and not be able to control things. A number of possibilities. Hawkins couldn't get 10 GOP House members to sign on to the petition that would have recalled lawmakers to Topeka in November to take up redistricting and other legislative priorities. Kansans have been crystal clear. They don't want politicians stacking the deck to cling to power, David said in a statement to the Star. So he's kind of interesting. That's David's comment on it. All right, I was going to say, this is weird for him to be saying, we should be doing this, but Kansans don't want it. Although somehow I believe Republicans could hold both positions at once. Anyway, I hope all lawmakers in Topeka are listening, she continued. This is Sharice Davids. But let's not kid ourselves. Backed by Washington extremists, state politicians made clear even today that rigging our elections remains a top priority because they know their extreme policies can't win on a level playing field. Well, she seems to have that right. Hawkins suggested that Senate President Ty Masterson, an Andover Republican who's running for governor, may push a vote on a new congressional map through the legislature's high chamber in 2026. And they're all high in that chamber, of course. But he said he doesn't see a point in holding a vote in the House that would be doomed to fail without the support of 2/3 of lawmakers. If I don't have the votes to pass something, I'm not going to put people on a vote just to have a vote, Hawkins said, estimating that as many as 20 GOP House lawmakers might vote against redistricting. Masterson did not respond to a request for comment. The Star obtained records showing Kansas spent $43,000 on redistricting technology and training in September ahead of the failed special election. Wow. Okay. There's more here, and I guess I'm interested in getting the more of the Kansas angle if I can, so I'm going to continue. Of the Republican-controlled states that have taken up redistricting legislation at the behest of Donald Trump, only Indiana so far has rejected new congressional maps aimed at maximizing the odds of Republicans maintaining a slim majority in the House, and I don't know that they really have it correct there. They might not be maximizing those odds. Missouri passed its own gerrymandered map during a special session over the summer, but voters will have an opportunity to reject it at the ballot box after organizers collected more than 300,000 signatures. But remember, this is Missouri, where they have a weird habit, the Republicans there do, of rejecting voters' rejection of things. That is to say, when they put it directly to the voters in a ballot initiative and the voters of Missouri speak out, whether overwhelmingly or not, but make a very clear decision, but it is in opposition to the Republican agenda, they tend to throw out the ballot initiative results. Ousting Davids would have been no small feat. She increased her margin of victory when state lawmakers drew Lawrence out of her 3rd congressional district and split the Democratic stronghold of Wyandotte, maybe? Wyandotte County, Wyandotte, maybe? Wyandotte into 2 districts in 2022. So they've done this to her before, and she's won anyway. Davids won re-election by double digits again in 2024. Senator Cindy Holscher, an Overland Park Democrat who's running for governor, cheered the failure of an extreme plan to rig the system. It's also risking the system, in a statement Monday afternoon. This is a win for everyday Kansans and for democracy. Voters should choose their elected officials, not the other way around. I've fought these map rigging schemes every step of the way because gerrymandering is designed to silence Kansans and lock in power for politicians who are afraid of accountability. So keep those comments and her and others, I guess. I don't know whether they've had their primary or not in mind, but if it is the presence of a Democratic governor in Kansas that's blocking Republicans' willingness to go forward with this stupid plan, then make sure you keep the office in Democratic hands when the time comes later this year, I guess. All right, just thought I would throw that in there. Then Greg sent me a gift link to the Financial Times article that I mentioned, and I should go look at it before it expires because that's been an issue. And now I'm just sort of wondering whether this is in fact the same article that MSN ran, or if it's just, I think they might have taken it from someone else who kind of pirated whatever Benzinga is. Anyway, the actual original version of this in the Financial Times right here on the pink screen. Polymarket refuses to pay bets that U.S. would, quote, invade, unquote, Venezuela. Prediction market disputes U.S. raid amounted to an invasion in fight over more than $10.5 million in wagers, not wages. They didn't actually work for this. George Steer and Peter Andringa, not Benzinga, but Andringa in Washington. New York is where George Steer is. I don't know why they feel the need to tell you that. I certainly didn't need to tell you that. Polymarket is disputing that the mission to capture Nicolas Maduro constituted an invasion and said it will only settle a prediction contract if the U.S. military takes control of Venezuelan territory, not just oil, not 30 to 50 feral hogs or 30 to 50 million barrels of oil. Trump now telling everybody, the Venezuelans said they were going to give us 30 to 50 million barrels. I don't know where he's going to put them, I guess in the ballroom. But people, I think rightly treating that skeptically, just sounds like another thing that Trump blurts out like that. And a good observation here somewhere, wherever I might have put it, I think Lindsay Byerstein pointing at Will Bunch, who has also been commenting online, looking at a Guardian article about this idea of the 50 million, is it up to billion now? Barrels of oil. I think they just said million. But he's just saying, look, there should be a ton more skepticism about this deal. Who did he even negotiate the deal with, right? The Rodriguez government, replacing the Maduro government, that seems to be not at all cooperating with the U.S. Is it them? I don't know. There's literally nothing besides Trump's insane post. And yet here we all are saying, well, they're going to give it to us. I don't know that they're going to give it to us. And Lindsay points out, Trump said he briefed the big oil CEOs on invading Venezuela, because this was obviously a part of his scheme, that they were all keen to get in there and revitalize the oil fields. But the CEOs told the media they've never talked to Trump about any of this. So Trump is a fantasist. And reminder, none of Trump's investment deals tied to the tariffs are real. That's all just stuff he says too, right? The Japanese have agreed to invest $350 billion in exchange for lower tariffs. And all of these countries are kind of like, we actually didn't make that deal, or it doesn't mean what you think it means. So keep that in mind. Anyway, the decision by the prediction market, this is actually, now that I think about it, I don't know whether these guys are billionaires yet, the people who run Polymarket or Kalshi or whatever, and if they're the kind of billionaires that have Trump's ear or not. We can discuss what might be driving that later on. But if they have his ear, they should be saying, you're making it really difficult for us to run our business by being so casual about dropping your fantasies all over the place. Like, you say that these things happened. People ask us to pay off on these bets, and they haven't happened. And it's kind of hurting our business model. But that's okay with me because it's a dumb business model, and I don't believe that you should be allowed to do it. Anyway, the decision by the prediction market, this one, Polymarket, has angered gamblers and added to the controversies surrounding a successful wager on the timing of Maduro's capture that netted more than $400,000 in winnings for a mystery trader. That was the big story over the weekend, as somebody miraculously predicted all of this stuff and then thought that they were in for a big payday. But Polymarket says no, rug pull on the win. And as we know, historically in our Wild West days, angry gamblers are usually pretty cool and accept their their setbacks with aplomb. But, the thing is that they're not in the same room with the Polymarket guys to hit them with the Derringer. But anyway, maybe there's a Luigi Mangione future for the betting market people. Who knows? I mean, I will say this. Online gamblers who lose have gained a reputation for making violent threats against the people that they believe are responsible for their losses, even if it's, basketball players. Anyway, the dispute over the definition of invade highlights just one of the controversies faced by the mostly unregulated industry. You ask for it. Polymarket, which only recently gained regulatory approval to operate legally in the U.S., says on its website that it will resolve the will the U.S. invade Venezuela by X date contracts if the U.S., quote, commences a military offensive intended to establish control over any portion of Venezuela by one of 3 dates. I guess depending on the contract you make. And I suppose it's not enough to say, well, we control the room where we found Nicolas Maduro. Well, do we? Well, we control it with drones. Would that be enough? If they don't do what we say, we'll blast them with a drone. Is that an invasion? No, I guess not according to Polymarket. So we'll have to invade Polymarket, I guess. or the gamblers will. They can use their winnings or their claims of winnings as collateral to hire Blackwater, or whatever they're calling themselves now, to capture Polymarket. That's an interesting thing. That'd be a great idea, actually, now that I think about it. We'll pay Blackwater, or my privateers of the Caribbean, more useful every day. Why don't we seize the CEO and the top executives of Polymarket with Delta Force or something like it, and we'll imprison you, and then I will ask you a few questions like, do you feel like we actually invaded Polymarket or Polymarket's offices now that you're sitting here as our prisoner and wherever we're holding you? Or do you think it wasn't an invasion? Maybe you'll change your mind. We could try that. Anyway, the resolution source for this market will be a consensus of credible sources, it adds, says the Polymarket shady online gamblers. We're going to be using credible sources. Prediction platforms such as Polymarket do not typically make directional wagers in their own markets. Rather, they act as an intermediary, matching long and short positions and adjudicating the outcome of events, collecting a fee in the process. Well, I know that they and the Kalshi guys all really love the idea of turning every either disagreement on whatever or every question into a marketable commodity, which is nice and neat so long as, one, people aren't murdering each other over their bets, and two, they're cool things like, oh, I don't know, will such and such a thing happen, but they're not directing those things to happen. And, I don't know, I guess they thought as long as people all agreed what the news was, they would be able to just calmly, coolly, and in an orderly fashion skim fees off the top, and everybody would agree whether or not things happened. I mean, the most for a prediction market, they did a pretty awful job in predicting what the big problem would be. Lack of universal agreement about what has actually happened and what the news actually is. That could bring us, by the way, back to January 6th, I suppose, as a storyline. Do I want to read more of this? Or not? I'm kind of interested in it, but I want to actually say, all right, I think we understand what happened here. I'm going to go back and, well, I'm afraid the link will expire on me like it did before. All right, let's see if we can't speed through enough of this. Well, gosh, it just reminds me so much of the January 6th, or I guess January 7th's news about January 6th, which is to say that the White House's website apparently now has up what it purports to be the official and real and true timeline of events on January 6th. And as you might have guessed, it has nothing to do with the reality of January 6th. So, like, how would you settle a bet on Polymarket based on the fact that there's the president of the United States and the United States government, which usually prior to the Trump administration was a relatively reliable arbiter of what the general consensus on factual happenings in the world would be, and now is not. Like, I don't know how you would end up in a betting situation on something that has happened in the past. It's not much of a prediction market, but it highlights the problem of if you're trying to settle these bets and there's no discernible consensus in the world about what happened. I mean, given what we understand about what happened on January 6th and what the White House website says about it, things like they were right, it was a day of love, it was a patriotic event, all of that. We've heard them spin on that before. But I mean, this website really spins this thing really hard. All right, we're not going to get to all of this if we don't continue on. After Maduro's capture and extraction from his Caracas compound by U.S. Special Forces early on Saturday, President Trump said the U.S. would dictate the Latin American nation's policies to be carried out by leaders of the remaining regime. Prices on the question jumped shortly after the raid, but fell below 5% when the platform chose not to settle the contract. The platform resolved a similar contract, U.S. forces in Venezuela by X, in favor of the yes position a few hours after the raid on Saturday. So if you simply bet U.S. forces in Venezuela, they couldn't avoid paying off on that one, I guess. There is currently more than $10.5 million wagered on the contract, the majority on a January 31st deadline, with the remainder on contracts ending in March and December. Users who had in some cases bet tens of thousands of dollars on a U.S. invasion have taken to Polymarket's comment section to vent their frustration. Polymarket has descended into sheer arbitrariness, said a user called Skinner. Words are redefined at will, detached from any recognized meaning, and facts are simply ignored. That a military incursion, the kidnapping of a head of state and the takeover of a country are not classified as an invasion is plainly absurd. Only, you see the problem right in the assertion. Words are redefined at will. Did we take over the country or didn't we? The facts on the ground appear to be that we did not. But you think that capture the flag style, since we kidnapped the head of state, we did. The words you're using are being redefined at your will. Polymarket did not immediately respond to a request for comment, or maybe they did. We can redefine that anytime we want. The bet, and there, can we bet on whether or not Polymarket will respond to a request for comment by a certain date? The bet on Maduro's capture has revived concern about traders unfairly capitalizing on their information edge after another incident last year in which a trader successfully wagered on the winner of the Nobel Peace Prize. But it's all about Venezuela. The timing of the bets on the Venezuela contracts appeared to indicate the trader had advanced knowledge of the military action. The anonymous account, created on December 26th, Boxing Day, placed a series of wagers on 4 questions related to U.S. actions in Venezuela in the days ahead of Trump's operation. The user bet more than $32,000 that Maduro would be removed from power by the end of January, when the yes position was trading at an average of 7 cents, implying a 7% likelihood of his ousting. I like that the metric is easy to understand that way. This market paid out at 100 cents when Maduro was flown out of the country on January 3rd, netting the trader a $400,000 profit, but it's totally not Barron Trump. I imagine actually a better indicator that was Barron Trump would have been if he had bet $32 million on it, but maybe this is just Pete Hegseth. The account made smaller bets on the presence of U.S. forces in Venezuela, buying at 12 cents and redeeming at 100, and the submission of a War Powers Act declaration to Congress, buying at about 5 cents and selling at 51 cents. The account also made a well-timed trade on the controversial invade market, betting $1,000 on January 1st when it was priced at 6 cents. The account sold at 18 cents when bettors were confused whether its terms were satisfied, locking in a 200% return before the price fell back to 5 cents. Congressmember Richie Torres this week proposed legislation that would prohibit insiders from engaging in covered transactions involving prediction market contracts. And to the extent that, apparently that's not illegal because it's mostly an unregulated market. But if you are casting yourselves as a market, Polymarket, or like Kalshi, Kalshi's CEO saying, well, we aim to turn everything that there could be disagreement on into a marketable security, essentially. Well, then you're going to have to be regulated as though they are marketable securities. But we haven't gotten around to that one yet. All right. So, wow, at this point, well, the break is coming up, for one thing. So I don't know whether we're going to be able to squeeze anything else in prior to the break. But I wanted to get back to a couple of things, both the neo-royalist idea, because there's more to share on that one. And actually, I read the paper, and it's not that long, and I really think I could and should share it with you. We can also return to the questions about the validity, let's say, of the White House website's ideas about January 6th. And rather than reading you their entries, although I could probably share one or two of those entries with you by way of example, but someone else has already done the work of writing up the news about that. And in fact, I think I've got a New York Times report on that one. But a couple other interesting angles on a number of things. But one thing I did want to return to, by the way, was this idea, because I talked with Jeremy Freiberger again in an email about it, the question of what about those oil tankers that appear to have evaded the American supposed blockade or quarantine of these illicit tankers. How did it happen? And was it really what it sounded like? Well, by my reading of the New York Times piece on it that I didn't get to yesterday, yes, it is exactly what it sounded like. And it was as simple as turning off the ship's transponders in some cases, or reflagging themselves, not actually, but illicitly using keeping your transponder on, but saying, oh, I'm a different ship from a different country. And to the extent you believe that, you'll probably let me sail out of here, even though, like, you look at it, it's an oil tanker. You're not fooling me. I've always been baffled by blockade running, because I always want, if you have a blockade, I assume you're watching all of those ships and blocking their access or for ingress and egress from the harbors. But apparently not, or as it may turn out, sometimes these spaces are rather large. The ocean, as it turns out, is huge, and it's one of the problems with blockading places. But they just turned off their transponders and sailed away, and the U.S. is pursuing them. And in fact, Politico tells me they found one of these things and seized it after the fact. But they ran that blockade. It worked.
Hi, everybody. It's me, David, still your host for the Kagro in the Morning Show after all these years. Thank you for all your continuing support for the show. And if you're listening regularly and still thinking about getting on board as a supporter, well, the time is now. Patreon.com is the easiest way to make recurring subscription-style payments every month, all year round, to keep us going. patreon.com/KagroX brings you to our page where you can sign up with your monthly support. And hey, have you seen our clever new subscription tiers? It's easier than ever to sign up for, say, one crisp dollar bill for every information-packed 2-hour show. If you're the plan ahead type, there's even a year-long subscription program that saves you 15% on the cover price. Or it would if there was a cover price, or even a cover, for that matter. patreon.com/KAGROX. Thanks again for all your support.
All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. Man, there's a lot to tell you, and we got to get to it. I mentioned to you that, yes, there was this blockade running situation, and that there was a New York Times article about it, although I'm scrolling around in Instapaper looking to find it, and it's there's so many things have happened, and it reminds me of how many things I have to tell you. But because it was out there, I thought I would get back to it. Sanctioned oil tankers flee Venezuela in defiance of U.S. blockade is the story I was looking for. It's in the New York Times. The ships are using deceptive tactics, says the subheader, as part of a seemingly coordinated attempt to bypass American naval forces in the region. That would be called running the blockade, I guess, in the old parlance. Back in pirate days, and we're in pirate days now. Christian Trebert and Anatoly Kormaniev are the reporters for the New York Times on this. Just throwing a little flavor for foreign sounding surnames in there to make things interesting. At least 16 oil tankers hit by U.S. sanctions appear to have made an attempt, anyway, to evade a major American naval blockade on Venezuela's energy exports over the last 2 days. This was a January 5th article. In part by disguising their true locations or turning off their transmission signals. Which, I mean, if you're running a blockade, why would you turn on your transponder? It doesn't make much sense. But I like the idea. If they're going to do it, if they're going to turn it on, they're going to pretend to be another ship, which I guess makes some sense. If they see us and then they look on the screen and then go, well, that's not the droids we're looking for. This is essentially what's happening. Then they'll let us go. Whereas I guess if maybe somebody, let's say someone on the ship has, I don't know, binoculars, or since we're in the pirate era, a telescope, and they look through their telescope and say, "Yar, that be the ship. I can see ye name painted on it." But if there's a, but sir, our transponder reading device, whatever the hell that is, says it's someone else. I be illiterate, and never mind. Never ye mind. Shiver me timbers. It's the SS Minnow. We'll just have to let it go. I don't know. Anyway, That's what's happening. For weeks, the ships had been spotted on satellite imagery docked in Venezuelan ports, according to an analysis by the New York Times. But by Saturday, in the wake of President Nicolas Maduro's capture by U.S. forces, all were gone from those locations. All were gone! Now, 4 have been tracked by satellite sailing east 30 miles from shore, that's not too far away, using fake ship names and misrepresenting their positions as well, a deceptive tactic known as spoofing. I think that's a good thing to add to it, not just changing your name, but saying I'm 200 miles in that direction. But if you're spotted, there's not much you can do about it. And by the way, Bodie McBoatface is going to attract attention. Don't use it as a name. Anyway, these 4 who were doing the spoofing have left port without the interim government's authorization, according to internal communications from Venezuela's state-owned oil company, and 2 people in the Venezuelan oil industry who spoke on condition of anonymity because they know they'll get arrested or killed. Whether by the Venezuelan government or ours. The departures could be seen as an early act of defiance of interim President Delcy Rodriguez's control. So we don't know who's where here. Lots of nuance. Is it Delcy Rodriguez saying you guys should run the blockade and bring the money back? Is it these guys saying we don't answer to anybody, Maduro, Rodriguez, or otherwise? I don't know. The other 12 ships are not broadcasting any signals. That seems like a better option, and have not been located in new imagery. Not necessarily as a result, but, maybe. President Trump unilaterally imposed a, quote, complete blockade on sanctioned Venezuelan oil tankers on December 16th in an effort that Secretary of State Marco Rubio, ultimate Florida man, said on Sunday was one of the largest, quote, quarantines in modern history and was successfully, quote, paralyzing the regime's ability to generate revenue, although apparently they're not actually interested in listening to the regime anyway. So what can I tell you? Rubio says they're all about generating income for the regime. The boats guys, I guess, say, yeah, we may or may not be listening to any regime. The blockade has notably exempted, of course, oil shipped by American company Chevron to the U.S. Gulf Coast. So far, U.S. forces have confronted 3 tankers trying to trade Venezuelan oil. One called Skipper, you remember them, was halted and seized by the Coast Guard on December 10th on its way to China. Second, the Centuries was halted and boarded but not seized on December 20th. We didn't hear much about that one. Why not seized? I don't know. What happened to the Strongman? And a third, called the Bella 1, but now called the Marinera, is still being pursued by U.S. forces. So they haven't successfully run the blockade yet. Let me skip quickly to a Politico article that I've grabbed that is titled, U.S. Seizes Venezuela-Linked Oil Tanker, and it's a new one. What's happening? The ship's seizure comes more than a week after it maneuvered through a U.S. Navy blockade of sanctioned tankers leaving port in Venezuela. So how about that huge quarantine, one of the largest operations in history? Well, it's not doing such a great job, although they did catch up with this guy later, this guy, Bodie McBoatface. Paul McCleary reports this for Politico. The United States seized a Russian-flagged oil tanker in the North Atlantic on Wednesday. Now, you might think that that's problematic, right? If you're old enough, you remember the days when the United States reflagged Kuwaiti tankers so that if they were attacked by the Iranians in the Persian Gulf near the Straits of Hormuz, using, what did they call those? HY-2 silkworm missiles. Was it HY-2? All right. Well, no one remembers these stupid things, or no one cares about the fact that I remember these stupid things. All right. But normally it would be problematic. We seized a Russian-flagged tanker. That usually means it's under the protection of Russia. Why isn't Russia mad? And the answer is in the neo-royalist article that I will get to eventually. But, is it a wink-wink, nudge-nudge kind of a deal? You don't even have to read about neo-royalism to find out about the deal. There's another article about that, by the way. Now, anyway, so they seized this Russian-flagged oil tanker in the North Atlantic on Wednesday after chasing the vessel across the ocean as it headed toward Europe from Venezuela. One U.S. and one European official confirmed to Politico. The seizure of the tanker Wednesday morning, originally known as the Bella 1, that's the one, the Marinero now, comes more than a week after it maneuvered through a U.S. Navy blockade of sanctioned tankers. That's not clear what that means. Like, maneuvered around, left despite one, and no one saw it? Or are we talking about there's 2 American ships and I'm maneuvering through them? These are not the droids you're looking for. These are not the droids we're looking for. So much for the, if that's all it takes, the Jedi mind trick. You use the transponder and say I'm R2D3. All right, go ahead. I've always thought there was a whole movie to be made in the vein of Wicked, right? Looking at something from a different angle, different perspective from the traditional story. At least a short film to be made about. Let's talk about those stormtroopers. I understand that the Jedi mind trick fools at least one of them. Presumably it fools them both, but in my telling of it, there's another one that's a subordinate. He's new on the job. And the sergeant is the one who gets the Jedi mind trick and says, these are not the droids we're looking for, move along. And the other guy is like, these are the droids we're looking for. It's so obvious, but I'm afraid to speak up my first day on the job. Good short film. Someone can make it one day. Anyway, they found the Bella 1 a week after it just, left. The ship switched its registration to a Russian-flagged vessel during the chase, setting up a possible diplomatic row, as the British like to say it, with Moscow. A row with Moscow. It's a boxing match. But there won't be one, probably. Now, American helicopters and a Coast Guard vessel were being used to board the tanker under law enforcement authority granted to the Coast Guard. Oh, boy. While American and British submarine hunting P-8 surveillance planes and at least 3 smaller American surveillance aircraft circled the area near British waters, according to plane tracking websites. Or rather, according to plane tracking websites. The U.S. sanctioned the Bella 1 in 2024 after American officials alleged it was carrying black market Iranian oil. So there's a lot of actors involved in this. But I guess if you made it from Venezuela to the North Atlantic off of British territorial waters, you did a pretty good job, but you didn't make it all the way out of there. But no word on the other 15. So you tell me whether it's successful in running the blockades. All right. So other stories that leads to are many. Somewhere here, as I scroll through, gosh, there's so many things here. There's an article somewhere about there probably being something along the lines of a wink and nod agreement between the parties here. Here we are, a Telegraph article. I'm running out of time to read you the other thing I need to tell you about. The Telegraph article dated yesterday, January 6th. Putin's secret bargain to trade Ukraine for Venezuela, which I think everybody has sort of felt in the back of their minds. Maybe that's what's going on. Maybe that explains how you track and seize a purportedly Russian-flagged tanker on the high seas and get away with it. Concerns mount that Russia will be given free rein to crush Kyiv as Trump pursues his Don Roe doctrine in America's backyard. Cameron Henderson reported it this way, and we would have to read the whole thing in Instapaper because paywall, but let's see if we can see any of it here. Facing Congress, what is this where it begins? Facing Congress 3 years before, yes, Russia invaded Ukraine. Facing Congress 3 years before Russia invaded Ukraine, Donald Trump's recently departed Russia advisor made an extraordinary admission. She was, at that point, recently departed, and then she became famous for other stuff. Fiona Hill, remember her? A Durham-born Russia hawk, and that would be not our Durham, but theirs, warned that the Kremlin wanted a free run at Ukraine in exchange for cutting ties with Venezuela. The Russians, quote, were signaling very strongly, Trump might say it that way, very strongly, that they wanted to somehow make some very strange swap agreement between Venezuela and Ukraine, she told Congress. And I guess we missed that. back in the day, because we were more concerned, of course, with the cutting off of aid that was supposed to make it to Ukraine. But Trump's perfect phone call got in the way, and then we impeached him. Didn't work. The U.S. military's smash and grab operation to capture Nicolas Maduro on Saturday morning has stirred memories of a deal that was on the table in 2019 when Ms. Hill spoke. The Delta Force raid on Venezuela went remarkably smoothly, with only minor injuries sustained by soldiers and barely any resistance from Russia-supplied air defenses. But 30-something Cubans not so lucky, apparently. They don't mention that for some reason. Observers worry that the Venezuela attack could, at the very least, act as a signal to Russia as it fights in Ukraine and the U.S. slowly withdraws its support for Europe. Trump's very clear, energetic influence in the Western Hemisphere could lead to an understanding that we get to run things here and they get to run things in their neighborhood. John E. Herbst, the former U.S. ambassador to Ukraine, told The Telegraph, there are some Ukrainians who've shared that thought. The Kremlin has not distanced itself entirely from the premise. Dmitry Medvedev, the former Russian president who remains close to Vladimir Putin, said that although Mr. Trump's actions were unlawful, they were consistent with his history of defending U.S. national interests, adding that Latin America was part of his country's backyard. All right, you get the idea. I would like for us to read and discuss the entirety of the article at some point. But if you're having difficulty getting your head around, but how does this work? And what are the national interests, in fact, served by what Trump is doing? The answer may be, according to going back to the neo-royalist thought, that there are no national interests involved in it, and that thinking about things like national interests may be an outmoded way of thinking about international relations. I have somewhere the entirety of the article, and it is long, and I really don't think we will be able to get all the way through it in one sitting, but I want to put it on the record. This is something you ought to be reading, and it will help clarify. It doesn't, tell you what to do in this case, but a further examination of this idea is in order. Let's get to it. This is further back to the future. Neo-royalism, the Trump administration, and the emerging international system. There's the abstract was, I guess, entitled Return to Royalism, an Overview. This is part of, I noticed that, and it's part of the, the different sections of the article, a table of contents, essentially. With the liberal international order, or LIO, remember he used that, in decline, scholars have focused on the possible return to a Westphalian great power system with weakened institutionalized global governance and a rise in states maximizing their relative power. Again, by the way, we are reading authors Stacy E. Goddard and Abraham Newman on this topic and the Cambridge University Press. But looking at the emerging order through a Westphalian lens produces puzzles, particularly if we focus on the behavior of the Trump administration. Rather than competition, we see collusion. Not collusion. With the United States seeking deals with Russia and China, once believed antithetical to U.S. interests. Oh, yes, that is the puzzle, isn't it? Whereas Westphalian orders rest on recognition of external sovereignty, the United States has repeatedly questioned the authority of even its closest allies to govern their own territories, Greenland and others. Instead of mobilizing resources to maximize state power, U.S. trade negotiations have been used to extract resources for the president and those closest to him. That's why neo-royalist, right? And while the Westphalian order rests on legal legitimation, the president insists he who saves his country does not violate any law. That's the quote from him, but he was trying to pretend it was a quote from someone else, remember? For some, this emerging order is Westphalia with MAGA characteristics, reflecting Trump's transactional and, quote, populist nationalist foreign policy. We suggest, in contrast, that reading the emerging order as Westphalian amounts to donning intellectual blinders, leaving us incapable of imagining the range of possible outcomes. What if, for example, the emerging order recalls a different historical moment, more akin to the 16th rather than the 18th century? The Westphalian system centers on modern states with principles of territorial sovereignty and non-intervention ordering their relations. The liberal international order, LIO, built on Westphalia, adding rules-based institutions designed to regulate interdependent exchange relationships and generate shared peace and prosperity. A plausible emerging order, which we label neo-royalism, would be a major break from both the LIO and Westphalia, right? It centers on ruling cliques, networks of political, capital, and military elites devoted to individual sovereigns, seeking to generate durable material and status hierarchies based on the extraction of financial and cultural tributes. Just straight up. Wow. Neo-royalist orders neither begin nor end with Trump, by the way. The, quote, ideal typical order we outline can be found across time and space and has long competed and coexisted with state-based systems. Over the last decade, numerous leaders, including Turkey's Erdogan, India's Modi, Hungary's Orban, Saudi Arabia's bin Salman, China's Xi Jinping, and Russia's Vladimir Putin, of course, have embraced elements of a neo-royalist order. But Trump's position at the top of unparalleled power resources, including the dollar-based global financial system and U.S. military power, allows him to act as a world orderer. Got it? World orderer, with a particular vision of the whole world, who want to order it in a particular way, and in doing so, create, modify, and reproduce political, economic, and social institutions in the world. We outline the key principles of a neo-royalist order, how it differs from the Westphalian and liberal orders, and show how this sheds light on the Trump administration's behavior in international affairs. The ultimate triumph of neo-royalism is highly contingent, but we argue that Trump is capable, believe it or not, of mobilizing like-minded sovereign rulers and other supporters of his preferred system, and of sidelining those who might resist. Our goal is not prediction. A neo-royalist order is one among many contenders to replace the LIO, but for policymakers and scholars, the neo-royalist approach clarifies recent events in U.S. foreign policy that might otherwise seem idiosyncratic or illogical. Got a lot of that going around. Theoretically, we should take alternative international orders seriously, or even literally, and establish a research agenda beyond Westphalia. First up, the return to royalism, the overview here. Other scholars have warned of a return to the patrimonial state, with rational legal bureaucracies displaced by personalized rule and extra-legal sovereignty. Again, here, the rational legal bureaucracies, or the reality-based community, replaced by personality. Remember, we've been talking about that, personalized rule, and extra-legal sovereignty. We suggest that it is not only domestic structures of sovereignty at stake, but international ones as well. We use neo-royalism to describe this order because while it recalls pre-16th century European dynastic systems, it is not necessarily the return of kings and divine right. Instead, although they're working on it with the evangelicals, instead it is an international system structured by a small group of hyper-elites who use modern economic and military interdependencies to extract material and status resources for themselves. Building a robust literature on European state formation, imperial and dynastic politics, and historical international orders, we argue that a neo-royalist order diverges from Westphalian and liberal orders in at least 4 key areas: its primary actors, its purpose, the means of sustaining the order, and its legitimation. There's a little chart here. Normally, I don't find it very helpful to read these things because they're better seen than read. But since we won't be able to read the entirety of the article, we'll lay these things out. Westphalian versus LIO versus neo-royalism. The primary actors in Westphalian order, states. In LIO, states and institutions. In neo-royalism, it's just the cliques. The purpose of the order in Westphalian system, state sovereignty. In the liberal international order, wealth and freedom. In neo-royalism, material and status hierarchies. The means of sustaining order, the mobilization of power in Westphalian, institutionalized interdependence under the LIO, and the extraction of rents and tribute in neo-royalism. How to legitimate the order? Gosh, how do you do that? Security is what you get in exchange from Westphalian system. Rules and a rules-based order from the LIO. Why? What makes the neo-royalist, or what do they claim legitimizes neo-royalism? Exceptionalism. I'm just an extraordinary individual. That's why I'm allowed to do this. Oh, wow. Well, next up, from states to cliques. Most international relations scholars treat states as the primary actors in international politics. You and I have all been trained to do that. It's been the case for 100 years. An ideal typical Westphalian state is one where sovereignty is centralized and territorially bounded. If you don't have borders, you don't even have a country. He actually believed some of that, right? Well, anyway, ideally, a state is one where sovereignty is centralized, territorially bounded, and with a political organization holding exclusive authority within its borders. International orders provide the rules, structuring interactions across state boundaries. While IR theorists, international relations, IR theorists often treat states as generalizable across time and space, such political communities are not only unique, but are, this is a good reminder, outliers across human organization and human history, I would add. This is only a relatively recent development. I know it's been the last 100 years. That seems like forever to us, but there's thousands of years before this without that. Historical orders, including the Chinggisid order of Genghis Khan, China's tributary system, and the dynastic European system, among others, centered not on states, but on a narrower set of players and their ambitions, often ruling through personal loyalties and kinship ties. We're going way back here, but why else is Jared Kushner on that stage? If you think that's, been relegated to the historical dustbin. We call these actors royalist cliques, small, bounded, exclusive networks defined through their connection to an absolute sovereign. Royalist cliques include the Khanate great houses, monarchical families and their courts, like the Tudors or the Habsburgs, and political conglomerations such as the Medicis in Florence, to name some prominent examples. We use the general term cliques rather than houses, families, or dynasties because such terms differ in their substance, but share key structural elements. First, royalist cliques center on an absolute sovereign, an individual who claims unrestricted authority to rule over a political community. The source of that authority varied across royalist cliques. In some, such as the original Khanate and Roman cliques, supreme authority stemmed from successful conquest. In others, it derived from lineage. Whatever the source, sovereignty is concentrated in a single and singular individual. Second, while an individual's sovereign claim is absolute, sovereign practice relies on the array of social ties that connect the monarch to other actors and secure power and wealth. These might be kinship networks that define succession, social ties to lesser nobility secured not only obeisance but military might. Monarchs maintain ties with banking houses, the Habsburgs with the House of Fugger, of course, the Mughals with the Javeri family to finance their ambitions. Now it's the Musk family. These are sovereign actors, but not Westphalian states. As Zarakol details, I'm not familiar with the scholars here, but okay. The Westphalian state relies on a horizontal centralization of power, with a political organization claiming supreme authority across all of a defined territory. In contrast, cliques are vertically centralized around dense social ties that create personal loyalty and connections. Non-clique individuals, for example, commoners, remain relatively isolated from royalist actors. These networks can extend across territorial boundaries and intertwine within them. Sovereignty can thus be fragmented within a territory, and a physically distant sovereign may have authority over local rule. Famously, Pope Alexander's papal bull of 1493 swept clean any notion of internal sovereignty within the Americas and granted the Spanish dynasty authority over its colonies. By the mid-19th century, and we're going to have to break off at some point here, the Westphalian states had replaced royalist cliques as the dominant actor in international politics, yet clique-based interactions continued to exist alongside state interactions, particularly among dynastic rulers, elite pacts, and transnational oligarchs. Over the last decade, though, we've seen a resurgence in leaders that adopt the model of neo-royalist cliques, with individuals claiming personalist sovereignty and ruling through an exclusive, tightly linked network of individuals. Italy's Silvio Berlusconi defied parties and depended on an exclusive media and financial clique to solidify his regime. Orban, Modi, Xi, and Putin have all centralized sovereignty within their personal cliques, and scholars even argue that these leaders are relying on royalist practices that never disappeared from their political systems. But Berlusconi, Modi, and even Putin were in no position to turn their domestic governing style into a world order. In contrast, Trump's vision of absolute sovereignty, his reliance on a clique composed of family members, primarily his children, fierce loyalists, Stephen Miller, Kristi Noem, and elite hyper-capitalists, often tech elites like Peter Thiel and Mark Anderson, guides not only U.S. foreign policy, but his ordering of international relations itself. Consistent with neo-royalism, Trump sees certain leaders as holding something akin to monarchical sovereignty and has prioritized relations with other dominant cliques. It was not by chance that his first international visit was not to European allies, as is tradition, but to dynastic rulers in the Middle East who treated him as royalty.
You have been listening to Kagro in the morning with David Waldman.
That, of course, served to burnish his own absolute legitimacy, at least in his mind, and where Trump goes, his clique follows, especially his sons, who have used these inter-clique negotiations to expand the Trump Organization's real estate investments overseas. More about this later this week. Now, time for Justice to take you to the West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy.